Now back to our top story, and that's the ongoing marathon talks in Vienna on Iran's nuclear programme. Let's discuss the latest developments with activist Caleb Maupin, who joins us live now here on RT International. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. So, does it look like the six world powers in Iran then are going to breach yet another deadline? It's now or never. Do you think we're actually going to see a deal?
Well, there's absolutely no rational reason that a deal wouldn't go through. The people of the United States, they want peace and further cooperation with Iran. The people of Iran want further cooperation with the United States. The only thing that is getting in the way of a deal being signed and there being better cooperation between our two countries, the only thing that is getting in the way is the greed of Wall Street. The oil companies, the weapons manufacturers, the Israeli government and its network of supporters are really committed to preventing any deal from going forward. And even though all of humanity really wants peace, we're really seeing every effort being made to prevent a deal from being signed. And it's very frightening to see these continued extensions of these negotiations.
Well, US Secretary of State John Kerry said, or says, that there are still some sticking points to iron out. Let's take a quick listen to what he said this evening.
Here is incredibly technical and that the stakes are very, very high. We will not rush, and we will not be rushed. And we won't let ourselves be rushed through any aspect of this.
So, Caleb, he says we won't rush and we won't be rushed. But then a few moments later, he said that the US is prepared to abandon the talks unless Iran signs the deal soon. Is that mixed signals? Is that turning the screw, putting the pressure on Tehran?
Absolutely it is. John Kerry really needs to remember where he came from. His career began as a protester. He stood up to Wall Street and protested the Vietnam War when he came back from Vietnam, and he opposed that war, and he had courage to stand up to the forces that like war, the war makers and the profiteers. That's where his career began, and he really needs to look at where he came from, because everyone wants this deal to go through. Humanity is almost unanimous in wanting there to be an end to the sanctions on Iran and peace between the two countries. So he needs to stand up to the pressure of those who have another agenda. I mean, what's preventing a deal from being signed at this point is the United States is really making ridiculous demands here at the last moment, making impossible demands. What country in the world would allow every military site to be inspected by foreign countries? That's an outrageous demand, especially for Iran, which has been under attack since 1979, facing endless attacks, subversions, invasions, protecting itself ever since its 1979 revolution. So we're seeing the U.S. at the last moment making these ridiculous demands as kind of a concession to the very wealthy and powerful forces in the U.S. that don't want a deal to go through. And it's very, very unfortunate. So many people in Iran, so many people in the United States, their hopes have been lifted by these negotiations. They're really hoping that there can be success, and to see our elected officials just cave into pressure like this is very, very disturbing. I mean, Iran is not a threat to the United States. Iran is not developing nuclear weapons. It has fully complied with the International Atomic Energy Agency, and at the negotiating table, it's been willing to make great concessions. Yet the U.S. just is not willing to budge and make peace with Iran, and that's very frightening, especially due to the fact that Iran is the country that's scoring so many victories against ISIS. It's Iran and Syria that are scoring great victories against Daesh, ISIS, whatever you want to call them. So if the U.S. is actually serious about wanting to fight terrorism in the Middle East, it should start to get along with Iran and think about who the real enemies are, who the real threat to stability in that region is.
Caleb, you mentioned there those who are opposed to this deal. Many of them are the Republicans in Congress. Congress goes on its summer break on Saturday. People need a deal before then, don't they, for Congress to then pass the bill and lift the sanctions? Is that why we're coming to the 11th hour here, really?
I think that there has been a section of the ruling elite here in the United States who has said from the beginning that they will not allow there to be peace between the United States and Iran. And it's not just Republicans. There are many figures within the Democratic Party that are connected to the oil companies and the weapons manufacturers and the Israel lobby. And these organizations, which represent very rich and powerful people, they have control of a lot of elected officials in the United States. As much as the government of the United States claims to represent all the people, that's that's not necessarily the case. Often, you know, the richest and most powerful corporations, the oil cartels, they exercise quite a bit of power in legislation and in Washington, D.C., and we're seeing this on full display. I mean, why can't there be peace between the United States and Iran? Why not? Whose interests is stopping a deal really serving? Who are the politicians really working for when they continue to be so hostile to Iran?
OK, Caleb Maupin from the International Action Centre. Thank you very much for joining us here on RT International.